5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gringo Show. It's nice to be back. Hope you are safe and well wherever you are watching us from. We're curious if you're watching us right now. Tell us whether it's right here in Mexico City, in the States, or funny enough, we have a pretty good following in Norway and the Philippines. Welcome in Nordmen and maligayang pagdating ng mga Pinoy. I don't know if I said that right, but oh well. Let's get to the news of the week because a lot of interesting things have been happening around the world. A major cold front swept through the United States and made its way down to Mexico earlier this week, causing record low temperatures and dumped snow in many localities over northern Mexico, causing widespread power blackouts in more than 23 states, as far down as the state of Mexico, and opened huge safety risks for a lot of people. The government has come under much scrutiny for this, and the story tonight is why this has happened. The situation in Mexico is bad, but in Texas, the situation is at the level of humanitarian crisis, with some reports saying that the Texas power system was within minutes or seconds of total shutdown across the state. People are struggling to stay warm. Millions have been without power since Monday, and the state is still seeing freezing temperatures and snow. There are many reasons for this. First, Texas decided not to connect their power to other states, so they would not have the answer to federal regulations. There has been no way in this crisis for other states' power grids to help Texas recover. Second, they deregulated this energy sector in the 1990s, meaning they took it out of government control and gave it to private industry. Because these industries want to be profitable, they have failed to do any preventative maintenance and plan for these types of emergencies. Not smart in this era of climate change. In order to get power back on, the governor announced a full shutdown of natural gas exports to Mexico. Why is that a problem? Because more than 60% of Mexico's electricity is generated by natural gas imported from Texas. Yes, 60%. And although Mexico has reserves for this type of issue, the government did not act quickly enough to use it, which is why grandma in a town of over 1,200 kilometers away from the U.S. border may have not been able to watch the most recent episode of Fuego Ardiente, and may not know if Gabriel finds his missing brother and if his partners and friends, the Ferrers, were the ones that kidnapped him. All joking aside, it's more serious than that. But it is fair that Texas Governor Greg Abbott decides to shut the gas in his state to let Mexico suffer. And I'm sorry, but that's fucked up. And that's why we deserve the name Pinche Gringo. So if another American gets offended like, Pinche Gringo, that's so offensive, this is why. The Mexican government should press this issue and find other reliable sources of its gas production. In the Rio Grande Valley, it is reported that the Mexican cell towers are functioning while the U.S. towers are out of service. That's right. It seems like Mexico has better infrastructure than Texas right now. And there was big controversy yesterday when pictures surfaced of Texas Senator Ted Cruz leaving the cold weather of Houston and heading to Cancun with his family during the humanitarian crisis. His reasoning, he was offered half-price tickets to Coco Bongo. No, actually he said, and I'm completely honest with you, he said that he was dropping off his kids for vacation and being a really good dad and then planning to come back the next day. We know that is not true. And really, Ted Cruz, I couldn't even get my dad to take me to baseball practice. Come on. I mean, look at your luggage. It was like a blown up beach ball and floaties that made it so big. Yeah, right. You were packing for the weekend. Liar, liar, Bermuda shorts on fire. And of course, this Pinche Gringo is always a hypocrite. He has publicly ridiculed a number of politicians on social media for vacationing during a crisis. Are you kidding me, Ted Cruz? Wake up. Let's move on to Mexican foreign relations. And no, we're not talking about what happens when a preppy university student goes to Europe for the summer and meets her Italian lover, brings him back to Mexico, where he can't understand why you have to be with your family every single Sunday. I'm sure some of you watching may have had a similar experience. What I'm talking about is the announcement by the López Obrador administration to appoint Mexico's education secretary, Montezuma Barragán, to be the ambassador to the United States. He brings a great amount of experience to the role. He has a master's in economics from Cambridge, served as Secretary of the Interior in the 90s, and famously negotiated peace with the Zapatistas as well. Everything looks great. He's legitimate, except for one small thing. Let's go live to Uninformed American to give us her insight on this choice for ambassador. Uninformed American, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay, Dan. Doing okay, Danny. But first of all,
I don't understand. Why don't you like this selection as Barragán being the ambassador? What's up here?
well, I mean, the first thing I gotta say is Amlo. First of all, how is that just something to get him on the front of the phone book? And like, come on, what's up with that?
But it's the name of the president of the country. I mean, let's be respectful a little bit to that. His
True.
name. But tell me more about like why you don't like Montezuma Barragán becoming the ambassador to the United States.
I just have to say, the last time I heard the name Montezuma, I was on a bachelorette party with my girlfriends, and we were at the Coco Bongo, actually. So there's that story. But 1 minute I was dancing with this guy, and then the next minute I felt like, oh my gosh, I've got to go to the bathroom. And everyone kept saying, Montezuma, Montezuma, you must have Montezuma. And I was like, no way, can't be that. And I just feel like, why would they want to name Montezuma Barragán? Like, I don't get it.
Uninformed American, that's his name that he was given with. But why do you think that he cannot be a good ambassador to the United States?
Oh, because I mean, everyone's gonna think about having to go to the bathroom every time they hear his name.
Oh, geez. I Uninformed American, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Pinches gringos, huh? All right.
Bye.
In Philippine news, yes, the Philippines, because we have to now cater to our new demographic. Wink, wink. I don't know. Why do we have people from the Philippines watching us? No one else does. The university students have been protesting a recent government decision to allow security forces back into its most prestigious university, the University of Philippines. The move is reportedly to find and remove communists from the school, targeting students and professors. This is another escalation by President Duterte to crack down on political dissent against his regime. Students from the UNAM were like, damn, if that happens here, does it mean I can't smoke weed before class and bang someone by the lake? This past Sunday, love was in the air. Wait, let me rephrase it. Fully sanitized through an N95 mask, love was in the air as Mexico City celebrated its first pandemic Valentine's Day, as the capital is starting to dig out of a very difficult past few months with COVID, while single people were logging in the Pornhub and making passive-aggressive comments about their best friend's lover. You're too good for her, Alejandro. You're too good for her. Single people, don't be frustrated. Celebrate your freedom from unwanted cenas with your suegras or being told you didn't pick up the toilet seat after you peed. Don't worry, if you're looking to find your special someone during this pandemic, someone with a lot of time on their hands mapped all of the single people in the city, block by block, using Mexico 2020 census data. I decided to verify this by looking at my particular block and knowing that there was at least one single person living there. In COVID news, you know that thing that's happening that sucks? Yes, that thing, that COVID. The government announced last week that Mexico City, along with other states, have moved from red to orange level. Sounds great, but really it's not that different than before. Restaurants can only serve outdoors, can now have 5 at a table and extended hours until 10 o'clock p.m. Indoor gyms are open as well, so your friend Jose, complaining for 2 months, oh my God, I'm so fat, I need to go back to the gym, can have that peace of mind. More abs, Jose, more abs. The thing is, there are still more than 8,000 people hospitalized in the Mexico City area, and that's almost double of how many were admitted in the highest point last Semáforo Rojo in May. Things are still very serious, and people need to just keep safe. But there's good news in all of this. This Mexico City government this week started vaccinating grandmas and grandpas in 3 different colonias or alcaldes, attracting people looking for sugar mamas and daddies, or just looking for someone to bake them a cake. Grandma, I'm hungry. The vaccinations were divided in a number of days, with the last one reserved for those who don't have a last name. Because the government of Milpa Alta were expecting Madonna, Cher, or Rihanna to get vaccinated. And we just wanted to make sure, Sarah, that, they had a time if they don't have a last name. Tough crowd tonight. The government is starting to receive more vaccines, with large shipments from Pfizer, AstraZeneca, the Russian Sputnik, and Chinese vaccines arriving this week. People are reportedly skeptical of the Chinese vaccine because COVID is the only thing coming from China that has worked for more than a year. Thanks. A little racist. Maybe not. Too early. Mexican Chancellor Marcelo Ebrard announced that the country has already ordered 260 million shots, which is enough for everyone in the country to get 2. And by the way, I wish we know more about why the Secretary of Foreign Affairs gets to have that cool title, Chancellor. And maybe that's why he always wears tinted glasses indoors, because he's the Chancellor and he's the boss. No one knows what he's looking at. I'm a little scared. The Chancellor signaled that the Mexican government was planning a complaint with the United Nations to highlight the inequality in the distribution of the vaccine, citing that 9 countries are getting more share than the rest of the world, focusing their efforts on Latin American and Caribbean neighbors. All right, I know I keep telling you every week that we're going to stop talking about Trump. I know you may think that I'm obsessed with him, and I will not be able to stop talking about him. It's like bringing up your ex in a random conversation with friends. I wonder what the asshole's doing tonight. But unfortunately, Trump is not going away, and he's probably the only president to garner this much attention right after the conclusion of his term. So in January, after the armed insurrection on the U.S. Capitol, the House of Representatives, with a majority vote, impeached him. Last week, his trial took place for conviction, which needs 2/3 of the Senate to do so. So follow along with me. I know it's a little complicated, but I want to explain to you what was going on. The managers who made their case against the former president are also members of the House of Representatives. Their case was pretty much straightforward. They argued that Donald Trump incited the insurrection, in simpler words, told people to go to Washington and attack members of his own government, including his very loyal vice president. They cited videos that were repeating his tweets on a megaphone. And when the majority leader of the House called the president and pleaded with him to call off the riots, the president said, and I quote, "Well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are." Amazing. The managers painted a near perfect picture of how Donald Trump was responsible for this. And it's been ridiculous because we've talked a lot in the show about the situation in Mexico in 2006 when Amlo contested the election and he occupied Reforma for 2 months and created a shadow government. But he didn't send his followers to attack and try to destroy the national palace. The former president's legal team were pretty damn hilarious.
Is it possible that his words could have been misunderstood? I suggest to you that is impossible.
Right. That is impossible, right? Just like, oh yeah, he's just joking around, President of the United States. I mean, their argument was ridiculous. They have the right to freedom of speech. It was pre-planned without Trump being involved. Yeah, right. And that the Democrats always create violence by using the word fight. We're going to fight for healthcare. And that is something that's scary, right? But they didn't really care too much because even before the trial started, everyone knew that there weren't enough votes to convict them. They could have gone out and been Bozo the Clown and squeaked horns and ran around the place, and he still would have been acquitted. It was a joke. So even though the House managers had a pretty cut and dry case, they presented compelling evidence. And
nobody made Donald Trump run for president and swear an oath. He betrayed us, and as Representative Cheney said, it was the greatest betrayal of a presidential oath in the history of the United States of America.
Yeah, the biggest betrayal of the public oath in the history of the United States of America. There's little question that Trump started the violence. But the crazy thing here is that he still controls the Republican Party. In a recent poll, 75% of Republicans think he should play a major role in the party in the future. This is after he tried to take over the government. That's insane. So naturally, Republican senators were scared and thought that if they voted to convict, they would find steep opposition in their states. So they decided to let him go. At the end of the vote, 57 for conviction, 43 for acquittal, missing the 67 votes needed for the Senate to convict the president and bar him from running for office in the future. So mark my words, I predicted on a past show that this insurgency was going to happen months before it did. Trump is not going away. And as Schwarzenegger would say, he will be back. Wait, or I'll be back, or he'll be, whatever. But Schwarzenegger said something that you can remind yourself of. Trump's going to be back. But you know what the saddest thing about this whole thing? You know that Americans always say that the US is the best country in the world, and every country admires its democracy and looks to the country as an example. Well, the example here is that it is proven that if a party with more than 33% of the seats in the Senate, the president can do whatever the hell he wants. And he can tell everyone what to do, and nothing can stop him, no matter how reckless he is. And trust me, politicians, people, governments, they will follow America's example, and autocracy will rise. And this is sad because holding the president of the United States accountable for his actions could have been a good example for us here in Mexico. But 44 US senators decided that their job and a small part of their constituency was more important than being an example. The Senate failed us all last week. But anyway, in other news, Lucha Libre star Blue Demon Jr. announced that he will be a candidate for the mayorship or alcalde for Gustavo A. Madero, one of the 12 mini cities that makes up the state of Mexico City. He is the adopted son of legendary wrestler Blue Demon, has wrestled in various organizations, and has never taken his mask off in public. He vows that if he wins, he will not remove his mask and remain anonymous for the entirety of his time in office. But here's the great news. Blue Demon Jr. will be joining us on our show next week. So do not miss it. It's going to be interesting to hear what he has to say about running for mayor with a mask and never taking it off. Only in Mexico, ladies and gentlemen. I love my country. So that does it for this edition of the Gringo Show. Thanks for sticking around with us with all those technical difficulties at the beginning. But don't forget, please support your local restaurants, including our sponsor, Pinche Gringo Barbecue. You can order exclusively with Uber Eats or with our own service by using pgbbq.mx or through the telephone number below. Also follow us on our Facebook page or YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to see you next week. Credits, Hector.
Pinche Gringo, Mexico is laughing thanks to you. We like to watch you dance salsa and listen to your bad Spanish too. We like to watch you almost die from spicy food.